McDonald's owns roughly $40 billion in land and buildings. That makes it one of the largest private real estate holders on the planet, bigger than most companies that call themselves real estate companies. And the burger you just bought? It has almost nothing to do with how this machine actually makes money. Because as McDonald's first chief financial officer once said out loud, in a room full of executives, we are not technically in the food business. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand the single reframe that turned a struggling burger stand into a 9-figure empire. The trick where the franchisee isn't a partner, they're a tenant. The rent is the product, and the burger is just the reason the tenant keeps paying it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You'll walk past a McDonald's and see a landlord wearing a clown costume. Here's the story most people know. Two brothers, the McDonald brothers, build a wildly efficient burger stand in California. A milkshake machine salesman named Ray Kroc shows up, sees the lines out the door, and buys the whole thing. Fast food is born. Golden arches everywhere. Billions and billions served. That story is true. It's also completely beside the point. Because in the early years, selling franchises the normal way barely worked. Kroc's cut of a franchisee's food sales was tiny, a fraction of a percent. Franchises would take his name, his system, his fries, and Kroc would make almost nothing. He was building the most famous restaurant chain in the world and going broke doing it. The food was selling, the company wasn't making money. And that gap, that exact gap, is where the real McDonald's was invented. Enter Harry Sonborn. Sonborn was not a food guy. He didn't care about beef patties or milkshake viscosity. He was a finance man, and he looked at McDonald's and saw something Kroc hadn't fully grasped. The money wasn't in the burgers. The money was in the dirt underneath them. His plan was almost devious in its simplicity. McDonald's would find the location. McDonald's would buy or lease the land and the building itself, not the franchisee. Then McDonald's would turn around and lease that property to the franchisee at a markup, with the rent stepping up as sales grew. So the franchisee needed McDonald's to even have a store to operate. And every month, whether it was a great month or a terrible month, the rent came in. Sonborn set up a company to run this. He called it the Franchise Realty Corporation. Read that name again. Not the Burger Corporation, the Realty Corporation. That was the tell, hiding in plain sight from the very beginning. Now, why is this such a good business? Think about what a normal restaurant franchise earns. You take a small royalty on food sales. If the restaurant has a bad quarter, your royalty shrinks with it. You're strapped to the roller coaster of whether people feel like eating out this month. Rent doesn't work like that. Rent is contractual. Rent is fixed. And then it ratchets upward. When McDonald's leases a property to a franchisee, that franchisee is often on the hook for a base rent plus a percentage of sales, whichever is higher. So McDonald's captures the upside when a location booms, and it's protected on the downside when a location struggles. And here's the part that makes finance people quietly emotional. McDonald's buys the land, the value of that land tends to appreciate for decades, and the franchisee's rent effectively pays down the mortgage. The tenant is buying the landlord's asset for them, one Big Mac at a time. The franchisee takes the operational risk, the staffing, the spoilage, the bad Saturday nights. McDonald's takes the rent. That is one of the most beautiful business models ever drawn on a napkin. Let's put real figures on it, because this is where it stops sounding like a theory. McDonald's owns or holds the property under a huge share of its restaurants worldwide, tens of thousands of locations. On its own books, land and buildings run to tens of billions of dollars in value, roughly $40 billion before depreciation. And when you crack open how the company actually earns from its franchised restaurants, rent is the largest single piece, bigger than the royalties it charges on food sales. Let that land. The rent McDonald's collects from its own franchisees brings in more than the cut it takes from selling burgers. The food is real. The food matters. But structurally, financially, the food is the bait. The lease is the trap. And it's a trap franchisees line up for years to get caught in, because a well-run McDonald's is still a fantastic living. Everyone at the table wins. It's just that the house, the landlord, wins in a completely different currency than everyone assumes. But here's the irony, and it nearly tore the company apart at the top. Ray Kroc and Harry Sonneborn, the burger believer and the real estate genius, did not stay friends. Kroc was obsessed with the product, the quality, the cleanliness, the theater of it all. Sonneborn was obsessed with the balance sheet, and famously wary of expanding too fast, of loading up on debt to buy more land. The two men who together built the machine ended up on opposite sides of what the machine even was. Sonneborn eventually left. Kroc's name and Kroc's vision of burgers and brand became the public face. And so the greatest sleight of hand in modern business locked into place. The company that ran on rent got remembered as a company that ran on hamburgers. The real estate engine kept humming in the basement while the arches glowed out front. To this day, most customers, most fans, even many investors describe McDonald's as a fast food company. It is, technically. It's also a landlord that happens to have $40 billion of ground under the fries. So what do you actually take from this? Because this isn't just a fun fact to drop at dinner. The lesson is that the visible product and the profit engine are often two different things, and the companies that win big are the ones who figure out which is which. The burger is the thing customers love. The lease is the thing that pays. A cheap flight airline might make its real margin on baggage fees and seat selection, not the fare. A game might be free, and the profit lives in what happens after you're hooked. A warehouse club might barely break even on the groceries and make its money on the membership card in your wallet. Once you start asking, okay, but what's actually the product here? You see these hidden engines everywhere. McDonald's just built the most famous one, and then successfully convinced the entire world to look at the burger instead. Which leaves a slightly unsettling question. If the most recognizable food brand on earth is quietly a real estate empire, how many other companies you use every single week are running the exact same trick, selling you one thing while they profit from something you never even notice? The product in your hand is almost never the whole story. Sometimes it's not even the important part. It's just the reason you showed up to pay. If this changed how you'll look at those golden arches, do me a favor, subscribe, because we take these giant companies apart one hidden engine at a time, and the next one is a brand you'd swear you already understand. You don't, not yet.